We don't have to go that far into detail.
I think we should.
We don't have to say that.
I think it's good.
All right, count us down.
3, 2, 1.
Let's go. Welcome back to the Turney Journey, guys. Good to see you. We are so excited for today's topic. This is going to be fun. This is going to be fun.
Guess what?
What?
I broke a door.
Yep.
What'd you break?
That's it for today's video, guys.
My heart.
Stop. No, seriously, guys. In today's video, we are going to be sharing some of our personal experience, and obviously, as you can see from the title and the thumbnail, we're talking about arguments today. Obviously, first of all, I just want to put this out there for you, those of you who are newly married, who may be at the beginning of your marriage, like us. We thought that we were just living some fantasy land where arguments didn't exist. But that's funny.
I was going to ask a question. I was going to ask you, how do you avoid arguments?
I don't think avoiding arguments is what we do, but we'll talk about it. But anyways, in today's video, we're going to be sharing some of the experiences that we've gone through together in our marriage early on. And hopefully you guys can glean from some of that experience. I know that God's brought us so much restoration in our marriage just from teaching us how to deal with arguments, because that, disagreements and stuff are going to arise. It's not like you're just going to have some perfect marriage where you agree on every little topic and there's never anything wrong. So we want to talk about arguments themselves, why they escalate so badly into big explosions that don't need to happen. And just how to deal with our wives as husbands, and how wives you can deal with your husbands as wives. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to share some personal stories. So the first one, I'll start us off. At the beginning of our marriage, I don't know, we were less than a year in. Clarissa and I, man, we were going through it, and a lot of the stuff that happened, we want to share why these things escalated into such big deals. But one of the biggest things when it comes to arguments, guys, is the fact that they become something so big when we don't know how to deal with them, right? The Bible says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And so hopefully through this video, we'll give you enough knowledge to where next time, a disagreement arises with your spouse, you recognize, okay, this is actually an opportunity for me to be selfless and for us to grow in a relationship together, whether you're the husband or the wife, and growing in that God-given role. So we have crazy stories. We're just going to share two, but one story is, and I don't even remember if we remember exactly what we were arguing in these or not. You probably do. She usually remembers things like that better than me. I do remember one situation where Clarissa must have said something, or something must have happened, and I remember I took like this little, I was either wearing this bracelet or it was on my dresser or something. This was well, in our earlier days of being married. I took the bracelet off and I just threw it across the room really hard. Like I whipped it. And when I threw this bracelet, it hit, I wasn't aiming for the TV, but we had a flat screen TV in there. It hit the TV. I didn't think anything of it. We kind of simmer down and get to talking and stuff. I turned the TV on like at the end of the night, and there's a massive like streak through all the pixels on the TV. It's completely broken. It wasn't like a crazy expensive TV, but it was a TV. So obviously it was, a little bit expensive. And so that's it right there. That story is a perfect example of something escalating into what it doesn't need to escalate into. I'll let Clarissa share her portion of the story, or of the other story.
So, yes. So first of all, I want to mention this is the first time we're actually sharing a little bit of some of the stuff we went through. Yes. And I don't want to overshare. I kind of want to be able to share it though, because I don't think that we've been able to talk about these things liberally on here, and I think I want
in general in our life
to be able to open up a little bit on this channel, because I don't think that we need to be afraid of the past, and we don't need to be afraid of judgment. So at the beginning of our marriage, we didn't have a honeymoon. Even at the beginning of our marriage, we didn't have time for that. We went into full-time ministry. We were living with family. We didn't have our own privacy. We didn't have our own place to develop into our marriage. There wasn't a place, not even just a physical place, but like a place to be safe. There wasn't a safe place. And a lot of times like family was impeding upon our relationship and our marriage and the arguments we would get into, and that would be what escalated things.
Yeah.
So we were going through a lot with that. We didn't know what we wanted. We didn't get to have convictions of our own. So we'd be constantly arguing about what we wanted to do and what we were going to do because we didn't understand what God was telling us, because we had all these voices in our lives. We had multiple voices in our lives, and that's one of the things, I guess, that I wanted to talk about when it comes to arguments. When you have multiple voices in your life and not only God's voice, and not knowing what each other wants and not coming into agreement with what God is saying, and you're just hearing all these other voices. You don't know what's true, you don't know what's not true. When you have all that confusion and all that chaos coming in, ask yourself this question: what's causing this? What's the root of this? Who is speaking into my life that is causing me to doubt what I want and what God is saying? And I think that's a lot of what was happening at that time. And we were on this trip that we didn't even want to be on. We were on this trip to go and help one of our family members with a job.
Yeah.
We just wanted to be helpful. And at that time, we had no money to do it. So we were kind of stretching ourselves. Like, we didn't say no to a lot of things.
And that's actually doing it because there was an opportunity to make money.
Yeah, but there's in the Bible, it literally says, don't even be involved in business for the first year of your marriage. And I think that goes along. It doesn't mean don't get a job. It just goes a long way to show you, like, be able to say no to certain things.
Well, and it also shows you just how sacred and crucial laying the foundation of your life together is.
Yes, and making decisions with each other, not just making them because somebody told you to make them. And we made this decision out of wanting to please this person in our family.
Yeah.
And we went to this thing to help this person, and we're in a hotel, and we were dealing with a lot of things in our body that was affecting us even physically, because of how much stress we were under and how much pressure we were under. We were under so many expectations and so many, again, I said different voices that were in our lives that we didn't know what we wanted. We were confused. We were, in a lot of ways, we had a lot of brokenness in our marriage that needed fixed. And we were at the beginning of our marriage. So it's like our foundation was a broken foundation. So I was very upset, and I was expressing to Nathan how I was feeling about our life and about how I wanted us to be whole and I wanted us to be healthy. And I wanted us to be able to know what we want. And we didn't know what we wanted. And I was so mad and angry and confused. So, and I didn't understand. I thought we were obeying God. I thought we were doing everything we were supposed to be doing. But we weren't. We weren't doing what God wanted us to do. We couldn't hear God in that way telling us those things because we were so caught up in what we thought we should have been doing. So one day I was just upset because he was having a panic attack. I was dealing with some things in my body. My body was hurting and in pain, and all of this stuff was affecting my body. So I got up and I said, I'm so done with this. I can't take this anymore. This is the end. Like, we're going to have to do something or else we can't do this anymore. And I just was like screaming and crying. Nathan was trying to calm me down and trying to pull me closer to him. But as he was trying to pull me closer to him, I would rip away from him. And then I just started punching things, and I didn't know what I was punching, but then I started smacking like the door, and like as soon as I started, the door was flimsy, I'm not gonna lie, but
they're not flimsy but hollow.
Yeah, and
like really hollow.
The door was done. Like, compared to the anger and wrath that I felt, that door was gone.
Yes, so all of that, clearly she remembers way more of like the actual content of what happened in those moments. You probably remember what happened when I broke the TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but all that to say, we have been through crazy arguments. Like, she broke a door, I broke a TV, we've broken other stuff. We've had just crazy blow up moments.
Breakdowns,
and I think that one of, mental breakdowns. And one of the things that we want to highlight is the reason that so many arguments escalate into something that they don't need to escalate into is we're going to use this as number one. This isn't in any prioritized order, but one of those things can absolutely be family, can absolutely be allowing family, or even if it's not family, even if it's just other voices like Clarissa was saying, into your marriage and into your life, especially in the beginning, but really in general. Bringing in partiality and bringing in bias and pinning each other against each other and putting pressure on someone to do something and all of that can create such a high level of tension where you don't have peace together and things escalate and blow up into something they never needed to become.
It's one thing if you're getting counsel from somebody, but when somebody's putting
Yeah.
such pressure on you to the point where they're willing to divide your marriage in order to get what they want in your life, that's when you need to draw some strong boundaries.
Yeah. Yes. So that's our first tip, guys. In terms of arguments, like we want to share from our experience because, like, we'll just be honest, we don't have those arguments now, and it's because the keys that we're going to share in this video, they're things that we've actually taken action on and said we're going to grow on this and we're going to work on this. So that's absolutely one of the top things. Another thing that I really wanted to share from a husband's perspective is in terms of arguments, it's really, really, really important as a husband that, you know, the Bible says to treat your wife as the weaker vessel. And a lot of times that's really misquoted and makes women look like some inferior being. But the truth is, if you guys watched my Husbands Let's Talk first video of that series, you saw a part where I was talking about the husband assuming his role so that the wife can assume hers. And so much of that shows that God has created us equally, even as the husband being the head. He's created us with equal roles. Like, for instance, the husband's to be the leader of the family and that sort of thing. The wife is supposed to be, you know, the nurturer and she teaches a lot. So we have these equal roles, and stepping in as a husband to treat your wife as the weaker vessel, it's super important to your wife. Husbands, I'm speaking to you. And husbands, wives, I think you can attest to this. It's super, super important, not just the content of what you guys are talking about, but even just thinking about things like tone and the way that you're saying something to your wife. That is super, super crucial, because if the Bible tells us to treat our wives as the weaker vessel, that means that their emotions and their emotional makeup is fragile, and you need to treat them. We've all heard that analogy of treating your wife like fine china, but you can just, you know, treat your man like he's some tin mug that's not going to break and he can get beat up a little bit. They're women and we're men, right? We're a little more rugged. We need to be spoken to a little more stern. I'm not saying that there's not moments to correct our wives and do it in a stern manner, but do it with love. Correct in love. Speak the truth in love. And also with treating your wives as the weaker vessel, when you're talking about anything, when you come to any disagreement, I want to encourage you guys, because this is probably the most big thing that I've had to work on in our marriage when it comes to conversations and arguments, is rather than reacting, responding to Clarissa. So if we come to a disagreement, the way that I'm going to respond to her is going to be out of love and actually listening to her, caring about what she's saying, hearing her heart, and not just all of a sudden getting defensive and having some fit of rage. Like, the Bible literally talks about the fruits of the flesh and the fruit of the Spirit. One of the fruits of the flesh is fits of rage and fits of anger. Wow. But the fruit of the Spirit is gentleness and kindness. You know what I mean?
Self-control.
And self-control. That's a really good one. So men, like, I want to encourage you, have self-control in your conversations with your wife. Treat her as the weaker vessel. Don't use some harsh negative tone towards her. Don't be condescending, and definitely don't be defensive. One of the biggest things I had to learn as a husband is the area that I'm most offensive in is the area that I need to work the most on. And so looking at our conversations and arguments as a way to actually grow, to learn how to love our wives more unconditionally, and this is vice versa for wives towards husbands as well. But I think that that's an insanely crucial part. So we're not necessarily avoiding those confrontations or those arguments, but we're saying when they do arise, because they will arise, this is how we can actually look at them as something that could potentially actually edify our relationship, because we're going to look at it from a selfless point of view, not just looking at it as, oh, I got to defend myself and I got to self-preserve. No, focus on their need. And then I promise, like, your need will also be met, because, you know, it's important for the wife to recognize the need of the husband as well. So that leads me to a question for you. What would you say, because I shared kind of like what's super important for husbands in an argument. In your point of view, through the things that we've experienced, what would your biggest piece of advice be to the women, to the wives, in terms of arguments? Like, how does their perspective need to change? What's your biggest piece of advice?
I think that one of the things that we can do as women is, if we feel like things aren't changing, we become so hurt that we only see our pain, and that we become very closed off, and it's okay to need to build trust back, but when you get to the point where you're shutting your husband out and you're being more critical of him, then than actually calling out the good things. Just being able to speak life and being able to even watch your tone, because you're not always right. You have to understand that there's things within you that God needs to work on. And I guess it's just like taking your own responsibility as a woman. Like, own it when you know you've done something. Own it. Like, I don't like going an hour without coming to Nathan and apologizing if I've treated him a certain way. I know I've used a certain tone, even if it was something small, just saying I apologize. Just simply saying, even if he did something wrong and I think that the argument was because of him or who started it or anything like that, it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with how did I respond and could I have responded better? And am I talking to him in an honorable way? Am I making him feel like he can be the man he's supposed to be? So just speaking to the man within him and loving him through even things that are rocky. Like, you can't just treat him differently when he's not where he needs to be. You need to be able to love him when he's where he's at. And that's the thing too about marriage, is that sometimes we become so conditional with our love that we love them better when they are doing what they're supposed to be doing, which I understand in some aspects that's natural and that happens. But like, when you're married and you made a covenant with somebody, you made it for better or for worse.
Yeah.
You don't go to your friends. Like, my advice to you is stop going to your friends. Stop calling up your girl about your husband.
Yeah.
Stop gossiping about your husband. Stop calling up your mom about your husband. Stop calling up your daddy about your husband. No, knock it off. That needs to stop and that needs to end. Stop posting about your husband on Facebook. Stop talking about him and making him, stop humiliating your husband. Stop. Like, I'm speaking to you sternly, because I've seen way too many women doing this, and it's dishonorable. I don't care what he did. If it was the husband, it's the same thing for him. But I'm talking to you like you're a wife. You need to be praying for him. If you haven't done all you can do to stand, you have no right to be all over Facebook talking about it.
Amen to that. So, guys, that gives us a really good perspective of the things that escalate arguments. Because, like we said, arguments are going to happen. But do they have to explode every time? Does something have to break every time? Do feelings have to get as hurt as they can possibly get hurt every time? No, they don't. And don't post about your husband on Facebook. Don't use a certain tone to your wife. Don't let family in on arguments. Like, all of these things are such simple keys that we can use so that our marriages aren't falling apart, guys. Like, one of the passions of our life is obviously marriage, and we see marriages fail when they don't have to. And like, if we're being honest, the number one thing that we see causing marriages to fail, one of the top things is family being involved way too much in marriage. But the other thing is people just not taking responsibility. Like, your husband or your wife could have done everything under the sun that's wrong to you, but if you continue to just blame them for every wrong thing, you're not even looking within yourself. There's no way you're a perfect spouse. And like, we have to love each other unconditionally. And when we're talking about something and there's something that's on my wife's heart that hurt her that I did, I need to listen, and rather than try to protect myself and protect my image and say, oh, well, I really did it because I was feeling this way, or, oh, well, no, I didn't mean it like that, so it shouldn't have hurt you. No, that is not giving her any sense of emotional safety. I need to be like, you know what? I want to hear her out, because what I did genuinely hurt her, and even if it wasn't my intention only matters so much because it hurt her in general. Yeah. And so we worked that out. So I listened to her, you know?
Even then too, like, even when you're, like, I'm talking to the women when I say this, but when you're that hurt, again, when you see your own pain so much, you don't get to see what you do wrong. You think that it's nothing compared to what they did to you, so what you do is justified. That's not true. Sin is sin.
Good. That's good.
Sin is sin is sin is sin. You are doing something to him too that's hurting him. If you are, you need to own it and apologize and change your behavior. You can be an example to your husband too.
Yeah, and you know, that's a really good point, because I think a lot of times as women, they probably don't see themselves as, hey, I could be an example to my husband now, because really, husbands, you need to be leading your wife. It's just simple as that. Yeah. But we do recognize that there's some levels of dysfunction in people's relationships. It could be in yours, you watching right now, where the wife is taking a lot more responsibility than the husband. And obviously that's not right, but just know that loving your husband unconditionally, love is the only thing that ever calls us to change. It's the goodness of God that leads us to repentance. It's not anything else. It wasn't when, you know, we were stuck in our sin that he just said, oh, you know, forget this. Like, no, that's when he chose to die for us, when we were dead in our sin. So loving each other unconditionally is gigantic. And we hope that you guys got a lot of this video, a lot of tools just to, you know, keep in your tool set. And we just encourage you guys, when you're in an argument, listen to actually understand and then to respond.
Just to respond.
Not just to say what you want, right?
And get your point across.
Yeah, we want to understand each other. Husbands, it also says, dwell with your wives according to understanding. So
yeah, I
we're
think
held
that
to
a
high
lot of
standard
this
in the
is
Bible.
like the arguments is a lack of communication and a lack of agreement. You're not communicating the right way, but you're also, like, I feel like sometimes 90% of the time, the couple would agree on the same thing if they understood from the other side's point of view.
That's really good. That's really good. Communication is key.
Like, they want the same thing. They want mending. They want health and love, but like, they're not coming to an understanding. They're not coming to a place of being able to see each other's point of view, so they can't come to that agreement. It's about seeing the other person's point of view.
Yeah, it's about actually caring, and then after that, allowing yourself to be heard as well. So, and I always, you guys, keep it on. Don't scream. Don't bring screaming, especially if you have kids. Like, we don't even have kids, and if we would have had kids in those times, like, I would have seriously been afraid for their mental health. And I genuinely mean that, because as husbands, like, we determine the atmosphere of our home, and we've got to keep stuff cool. We got to keep stuff level-headed. We can't have this heightened level of stress and anxiety everywhere we go. Let's talk things out as adults, and let's deal with them as adults and as people who love each other, who fight the devil and the problem and not each other. We made a vow to each other to love each other through better or for worse, like she said. So we hope that this was encouraging to you guys. A little side note, Clarissa and I had an argument right before we made this video. We literally did, but
we worked it out.
But two things we can say. We apologized to each other literally, I think, within 5 minutes of that argument happening. Back in the day, who knows where it could have gone. I really mean that. Especially, like, I'll take responsibility as a husband on behalf, like, in front of everyone in this video, and say, a lot of my reaction and my response has everything to do with how much that escalates or not. It's just simple as that. Something my dad said one time that I really, really liked what he said. He said that the husband, like, the man is like, he's the one that carries the seed, and then the woman is the one that multiplies the seed. So you give a woman a house, she'll give you a home. You give her groceries, she'll give you a meal. You give her a baby, or you give her a sperm, she'll give you a baby. So husbands, and that's so true what he said. So when you are sowing tone after tone after tone after excuse after all that into your wife, you're going to get an explosion. And that's, as much as she's responsible for her response, we have got to watch how we're leading our home. So anyways, we could go on forever.
Stop posting about your husband on Facebook.
Yeah, you stop. And we'll, as husbands, we'll quit that junk. We love each other. And we love you guys. We hope you're getting awesome value, guys. This is, like, our YouTube channel is always going to be free content to just give you guys hope in your marriage. Like, if you're struggling, you are looking at two people who struggled so massive, like, we were hanging on by this thin of a string, guys, like, literally. And we're more fulfilled, more peaceful, more joyful, more happy in our marriage with more purpose than we've ever had. We understand each other more. Like, that's super important. So we're going to keep these videos coming. Comment down below what you guys want us, like, the type of topics you want us to go over, because we always want ideas, but there's always going to be something for us to talk about. So I love you guys. Stop arguing. Do better in your arguments, because the arguments will come. But we love you guys, and we'll see you in the next video. Oh wait, I think it cut.